What's up, ladies and gentlemen? You know how much I love weird history, and you know how much I love military history. Recently, I got to visit a museum that had some exploded ordnances and artillery shells in it, but this wasn't a war museum. Oh no, this was the Seneca Rocks Visitor Center and Museum, and you might be asking yourself, why does a museum and visitor center in the Monongahela National Forest have exploded ordnances and artillery shells? Well, today we're going to talk about that time the United States military trained 50,000 Alpine soldiers in the backwoods of rural West Virginia, and it's 100% Finland's fault. If you've ever fantasized about moving to the mountains of the National Radio Quiet Zone to live in an old church and become a Scooby-Doo villain, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. I like your style. But today we are going to be talking about the time the United States used the Monongahela National Forest as a military training area. But first of all, why did they do this, and why was it 100% Finland's fault? So prior to World War II, the United States really didn't have any Alpine soldiers, these being soldiers who were trained to operate in high altitudes, especially in very cold and snowy conditions, at least not in an offensive capability. We did have several National Guard divisions who did have mountain soldiers. These were predominantly in states that bordered Canada and in the Rockies. These were soldiers who were trained in rock climbing and skiing and other activities that would make them be able to go out in snowy and very bad conditions weather-wise, but this was mostly more for like natural disasters or for search and rescue, not really for an offensive capability. Then in 1939, the Soviet Union decided to invade Finland. The Soviet Union would invade Finland with about 700,000 soldiers, a couple thousand tanks, and a couple thousand airplanes. But on the other side of the coin, Finland's entire military just had a little over 300,000 soldiers, a couple airplanes, and 32 tanks. That's funny to me because I know there's probably some Americans that today own more than 32 tanks. Now, on paper, this might look like it was going to be catastrophic for the Finnish, but if you know anything about geopolitics and geography, this was a fight between a bunch of communist soldiers whose government couldn't feed them and keep them warm within their own country, invading a country of Vikings with guns. It ended up exactly as bad as you think it would, which I won't say history repeats itself as far as ill-fated invasions, but the verses do tend to rhyme. Now, the Finnish would use their knowledge of geography and cross-country skiing to keep the Soviets bogged down and unable to move, and then just pick them off and harass them over time. Because of these tactics, about 300,000 Soviets were either killed or wounded during this conflict. Now, even on the highest end estimations, the Finnish lost about 70,000 soldiers, which was somewhere between 10 and 20% of their total military strength. But this was nothing in comparison to the losses that the Soviets sustained. Now, most other countries saw this and thought, wow, I really don't want to have to fight Finland in those specific conditions. But the United States, I mean, being the fact that we are 50 tribal warbands in a trench coat disguised as a world power, looked at it as a challenge. How dare anyone be better at killing people better than the United States? So we sought out to train Alpine soldiers. And seeing that the Second World War was probably going to take place in at least part of Italy, they looked for a region of the United States that would be similar to the Alpine Mountains, and they settled on eastern West Virginia because of the exact same reason why the settlers of Helvetia settled here in 1869. Nice. Because, well, it is very similar to the geography and conditions of northern Italy and Switzerland. Now, these soldiers that were selected to start up this training course were stationed in Elkins. Elkins was their headquarters. And because nothing like this had ever been done before, they were really just making it up as they went. But they utilized about 2 million acres of the Monongahela National Forest for various training exercises. And between the start of 1943 and the end of 1944, more than 50,000 soldiers came to this area to receive training in mountain warfare. Mountains like Seneca and Seneca Rocks, along with other rock formations through the area, were soon covered in mountain climbers who were learning how to mountain assault. And despite making it up as they went, and most of these people never rock climbing before, the United States made a note that there were relatively few injuries during these training exercises. In fact, in order to pass the training course, you had to go up 2 rock faces that you had never gone up before at night. And yeah, there were still very few injuries outside some broken bones, some bruised ribs, and some severe rope burn. Now, while soldiers were climbing up and down these rock formation, other soldiers were in the area being trained for things like use of carrier pigeons, pack mules, long-distance mountain signaling, but also driving on backcountry roads, very rugged driving conditions, and heavy use of artillery, which is how these bombs got here in the first place. Nearby, Dolly Sods was used for training soldiers with 105 and 155 millimeter artillery cannons. And I know you've probably all seen the meme of Dolly Sods on Memorial Day weekend. I think it was 2017, where it's just all these cars from like Virginia and Maryland and DC. I don't know anything about Delaware, but I know I probably don't like them either. Just hundreds of cars lining the roads of Dolly Sods, and then the dude from The Godfather being like, look how they massacred my boy. Okay, first of all, as bad as those people are, the United States government already tried turning Dolly Sods into a crater. And because there are still some unexploded ordnances out there in the wilds, I mean, this problem might just fix itself. That's a joke. That is a joke. I would wish no harm upon anyone from Maryland, Virginia, DC, or Delaware, and they're way more likely to get eaten by bears. Yes, the United States military would make use of nearly 16,000 acres of Dolly Sods as a live fire course for artillery, and yes, there are still unexploded ordnances out there, but is it safe to visit there? Is it safe to go there and travel on the paths in and around Dolly Sods? And the answer is absolutely yes, because since the area is overseen by the Army Corps of Engineers, they had to bring people in to make those paths, and some of those people were probably from EOD. What is EOD, you ask? Well, that stands for Explosive Ordnance Disposal. If you have a raccoon or possum in your garage, you call pest control. When the United States military wakes up to like a giant bomb in their backyard, they bring in EOD. These are the individuals, if you've ever seen the movie The Hurt Locker, these are the folks from The Hurt Locker. And these individuals, their whole job is finding and disposing of explosive ordnances. If you don't know anything about explosive ordnances, if time isn't an issue and there isn't a chance of loss of life or property damage, the easiest way to get rid of an explosive is just pull everyone back, get behind some cover, and let it do what it was supposed to naturally. Just let it go boom. So I guarantee the Army Corps of Engineers called in a bunch of EOD guys. I think the last crew they sent out was in like 1997 to inspect the area on and around all the trails in this area of Dolly Sods. They called these people in and they're like, hey, we need y'all to go out there, make sure these trails are safe. If there's any explosives nearby, get rid of them any way you can. And their first question probably was, okay, that's cool, but like, are there any structures nearby? Are there any people that live nearby? And when the United States Army responded, no, it's literally about 50,000 acres of untouched wilderness, I guarantee you every soldier there immediately jumped to attention. Yes, that's a euphemism. At the time when they were doing these live fire exercises, they had to print notices in nearby newspapers in order to warn people, hey, we're going to be doing these exercises. Do not go hunting in this area. And if you want to come watch, we'll set up little places for y'all to come watch. Do not try watching them from the wood lines that we're firing into, which is, I'd probably want to go watch a 155 millimeter artillery live test fire too if I ever had the opportunity. So I think that's gotta wrap us up here. This was just a little bit of the history of the time the United States military used the Monongahela National Forest as a training center and how these exploded bombs and ordnances ended up at the Seneca Rock Visitor Center and Museum. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you haven't yet, subscribe to the channel and let me know if there's any other bits of West Virginia history you would like for me to cover. Leave a like on the video, that always helps. But until next time, don't forget to stay wild, stay wonderful, and I'll talk to you later.